the Atlanta Hawks select Luka Doncic.
My biggest get was a Babe Ruth autograph. And so it's not a pull per se from a pack or anything, but in terms of the way I collect, when I got the Babe Ruth autograph, that was the holy grail for me. That was it. And then I took it and I sent it into PSA, and it came back a Gem Mint 10. It was already PSA graded, so that was good. So authenticity wasn't the issue, it was how it just looks so clean. I was like, this has got to be a great grade. Ruth launched the autograph world. Ruth signed a ton, you know, but it doesn't mean that they're all pristine autographs. When it came back a 10 and I pulled that out of the box, I was on cloud 9. I was like, oh my gosh, Gem Mint 10.
Yo and hello everybody. Welcome to my card room. So this is where I do all my card stuff. This is where I shoot my YouTube videos and spend a lot of my time hanging out in here. And if you had a card room like this, why wouldn't you? Having good organization is key, because as you start accumulating more and more stuff, if you don't have a place to put it, it's just going to turn into a giant mess. And so for me, one of the first things I did long ago was I refurbished this case right here. It's called a Berg display case, and they are used a lot in thrift stores and antique shops. And so my dad and I took it and kind of broke it down and rebuilt it. And so we built each shelf to hold a top loader perfectly. And man, it's just wonderful. It just rotates around. It's got a beautiful neon light in it. This is full of all player era, meaning Topps cards when the player was active, all signed by Hall of Famers. And I have too many to even fit this. I have more than can fit in here. There you go.
So like most kids, I started collecting cards as a youngster. I was putting cards on the floor of my bedroom and lining them up by team, and that was kind of the way I organized my collection at the time. And my love of baseball really started with my dad and his line of business of being in sports television and being a cameraman at Rangers games. I would get to tag along pretty often as a kid and just enjoyed going to the ballpark, enjoyed the game. My collection really started growing again through the junk wax era. As we would go to Sam's or whatever, they had cards like literally on pallets. Like, do you remember, like there were cards on pallets, boxes of Score and Topps, and you could just buy as many as you wanted to. It was a crazy time, and they were printing so much of it, it was very easy to get. And I would just, every time we'd go to Sam's, I'd get a box or two of something and then come home and rip it. And so I have many monster boxes of 88, 89 Topps, 87 Topps. And
so I keep all my bulk stuff in what I just call the closet. Why do I call it the closet? Because it's a closet. And so you open this up, and in here, as far as I can open it for you, this is where I keep all of my Topps sets. I have every Topps set from 1973 through 2020.
I evolved into a player collector. From a box breaker, I evolved to a player collector, and I started with Darryl Strawberry. And back then there was no eBay, so getting cards that you needed, you had to either go to a show, a card shop, and hopefully get lucky to find those cards, whereas now you can get any card you want through some online source. As a player collector, I was a Darryl Strawberry guy, and then I converted over to Juan Gonzalez, Ivan Rodriguez, kind of the young Rangers at the time in the early 90s. Doubles didn't matter, I just wanted all of them. It wasn't like I wanted one card of each card that was out there. I didn't care, I just wanted all of them that I could find that were reasonably priced. I remember seeing Josh Hamilton in the 2008 Home Run Derby in New York. And I said, I've never seen anything like this before.
50,000 plus New Yorkers chanting his name! Gone again!
That night became an instant Josh Hamilton super collector. And then I finally got to the point of a player collector. As Hamilton's career started to decline, I started thinking, is this really the way I want to invest my money? I don't mean invest using the I word, but when you're putting money into anything, you want to be cognizant of some terminal value of that. I don't want it to be just worthless.
So it's not like I don't like to make money on cards if I can. I mean, some buddies and I went on a bunch of LeBron James rookies. We went in together to buy some, got them graded, and are now in the process of selling them. So that's not something I'm really having interest in. I don't collect basketball. So that's the thing. You can still enjoy the card market and make it profitable, but I have a huge part of the hobby that I collect and that I love that I'm not selling. So you can play both sides of that.
I sold off my Juan Gonzalez collection to one guy, like all in one time, for like $10,000. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna start going after the guys that have proven themselves. They're in the Hall of Fame. I love vintage. There's times when I'll focus on autographs. There's times when I'll focus on vintage, and they all kind of work together.
Yo and hello everybody, Mike here, baseball collector. Today's gonna be a little bit of mail and a little bit of talking.
So I got into YouTube. I dabbled in it back as far back as 2013. I started watching videos like a lot of guys and like, wow, there's people out there that are as crazy as me about this stuff. Got into it a little bit in terms of a viewer, just a consumer of content. I said, you know, I've got some pretty cool stuff. I bet some people would enjoy what I have to show. Would I be good on camera? Had no idea. Would I make a complete idiot of myself? Likely. But I said, why the heck not? People get nothing else out of my channel. I hope they see that I love this stuff, and I love the sport. I love the cards, the connection that creates, the nostalgia that brings back for people. That's the whole point of doing it. So if you're a new collector and you're a young person, I would tell you, buy the team you love, you know, follow a few players, collect those guys, go out and buy their cards. I think that's a great way to get introduced to the hobby. And it's somebody you can watch on TV and cheer on and root for. I think that's great, a great introduction to the hobby. And then if you're an older collector, be patient. Be very, very patient. Being a hobbyist and being a lifelong collector, I'm telling you, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you dive in and jump in without learning kind of what you really like and what you're really searching for, you're gonna make a lot of costly mistakes. It's changed a lot since you were a kid, I'm telling you right now. So just take some time and learn. Watch some YouTube videos, you know, read stuff online, go join some forums and just learn. The hunt's the best part of the hobby, right? Finding the stuff. And then ironically, for most of us, 99% of the stuff we buy goes into the dark hole. And it rarely sees the light of day again. But the hunt is so much fun. So enjoy the hunt. If you're an older collector, enjoy that hunt. So let's talk about some basic definitions of grading. First of all, you got a TPG, a third-party grader. And those are three big ones right now. You've got PSA, which is far and away #1 in terms of volume. Then you've got BGS, which is Beckett Graded Services. And then you've got SGC, all three of which have their kind of niche in the hobby. PSA was kind of known as the post-war, you know, through the 80s kind of grader. Beckett was always used for the more modern stuff, being pulled right out of the packs. All the hot rookies were going to Beckett. And then your pre-war stuff was usually sent to SGC. So there's a term out there called POP report. That simply means population report. And if you look up on PSA or SGC or even BGS, you can find how many of that particular card have been graded. And it will break down how many in each grade, and you can tell how many are out there in the world. So PSA particularly, when they grade a card, sometimes they'll give you what's called a qualifier. And a qualifier is simply some defect that they see on the card that they want to highlight. And that might be ST for some stain on the card, which could be a gum stain or you spilled coffee on it. It could be PD, which is a print defect. Sometimes you'll see little eye holes on a card or different things like that. You've got MK, which is mark. So if some kid wrote in pencil on their 1956 Topps card, that'll be on there as a mark. You can have MC, which is miscut, which is simply the printer screwed it up from the very beginning. They miscut the card at the printing factory. And the last one is OC, which is off center. And that's simply where a card might be considered miscut, but it's not really miscut, it just kind of isn't quite perfect, it's just off center. And so when you get a designation like that of a qualifier, All that simply does is, if you're using the set registry to track a set, track a player, track a collection of any type, that will knock that grade down, that assigned grade, 2 grades. So if you had an 8 OC, for example, that would be the card's an 8 otherwise, except that it's off center. So that knocks it down in the registry to a 6. It just knocks it down in terms of the value to your set registry. But it's really an 8. Like, if it wasn't for being off center, it would be an 8. That's how that works. Graded versus raw. If you're thinking, well, why would I go graded? Well, let me tell you why I went graded cards and why I have so many now. Because early in my vintage life as a collector, authenticity scared me to death, because even though I'd been in the hobby forever, cards get reprinted and there's great, wonderful fakes out there. And the money that you pour into vintage started me thinking, like, wow, if I'm gonna start really putting a lot of money towards this, I wanna make sure, at worst, I'm getting an authentic card. Is it graded accurately? In someone's opinion, it's graded at whatever grade it is, whatever the assigned grade is. But the authenticity of that was way more important to me and worth the cost of admission, so to speak, into the grading card world. And so that's definitely fits into my wheelhouse, my type of personality, the completionist nature that I think a lot of collectors have is, man, if I start this, I want to know I can complete it. Which then is really funny why I even collect Hall of Fame autographs, because you can't get them all, so why even start? But that's a whole nother story.
Atlanta foul at this first. The Atlanta Hawks select Ruth.